our next session, which is going to be a quick fireside chat for about 30 minutes or so. I will be the moderator. But basically, again, I think the question we are looking to talk about, we kind of hear a lot about AI changing the tools we use. But today, I think we are here to talk about a much more bigger shift. What happens to our culture when half of our workforce isn't human? If you think about it, using AI, using chatbots. The chief HR officer's role or the chief people officer's role is no longer just about managing people. It's also about orchestrating, human empathy with machine intelligence. So let's unpack what it really takes to keep the human in the loop. In a fireside chat, we are calling the human in the loop, leading people through the AI transition. And today with me, I have a wonderful guest for this conversation, Tiffany Summerville. She is an award-winning Chief Human Resources Officer with more than 25 years of experience leading people strategy across global, highly regulated organizations, including venture-backed startups, growth stage biotech companies, and global institutions, experience spanning US, UK, and the European Union. Tiffany is the architect of couture leadership, a leadership philosophy grounded in intentionality, precision, presence, and a tailored approach to developing people and organizations. Tiffany is also the founder and president of Women of Color in Corporate America, a network advancing leadership, visibility, influence, and economic mobility. Welcome to this year's Work Congress, Tiffany. Great to have you here today.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Awesome, wonderful. I'd like to mention just before we get started that this is going to be an open, honest exploration of the topic rather than a technical discussion on tools and systems. I know we have a lot to cover and we got only about 25 minutes to go, so we can get started. But did you have any opening words to share before we go full-fledged into the conversation?
No, not other than I'm just happy to be here and happy to share my experiences and expertise and to have a collaborative conversation. Thank you for having
Awesome,
me.
wonderful, perfect. So let's get started. I think I'm going to start with a big one, but also an interesting question. I think something that more and more maybe people are thinking about these days, right? So talk about coworker dynamics. You already have, like I used to be a recruiting assistant many years ago. So that is now a chatbot. So with that said, when an AI coworker is integrated into the team, that changes the fundamental relationship between management and the staff, right? So how do we redefine accountability, performance management, and also the collaboration aspects when half of that workforce is no longer human?
Sure. So let me start by saying integrating AI is absolutely essential. It is absolutely essential. But we have to be clear about its role, right? It is a tool and it is a resource. It is there to enhance our work, not to replace how we lead. So I really want to make sure that I'm very clear about that.
Oh.
So to me, calling AI a coworker is very interesting. And I chuckle a little bit as I actually implemented an AI solution within one of my organizations. And I called her name was Amber, and I did call her the chief listening officer. But by no means was to intimate that this was an actual coworker other than a resource that would engage with my population. We have a very diverse population in so many ways. Some folks like to interact with people, some people
Mm-hmm.
do not.
Yeah.
And so we have to meet people where they are.
True.
And so this mechanism was another strategy to ensure that I'm meeting my population where they are. And at understanding, obviously, we are the people putting in the information. If they were to come directly to myself or my team, we'd give
Mm-hmm.
them the similar information, but we need to
Sure.
meet people where they are. That said, applying when it's applied to performance management, it
Mm-hmm.
can absolutely improve efficiency. It can help surface patterns that you
Mm-hmm.
may not be able to see, of course, tracking progress and providing insights, data insights, and metrics that would not otherwise perhaps be as quickly allowing us to scale.
Sure.
But it doesn't replace the human responsibility of leadership.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And I
Yep.
really, really, I have to, that responsibility just cannot be outsourced. It
Sure.
cannot.
Sure.
So I'll pause.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good insight too. Yeah, definitely. I think it was more. I think as we move more towards having, let's say, half of your workforce that's kind of automated. A lot of processes are automated, a lot of systems have been automated. And so what 100 people used to do maybe cuts down to about 50, or sometimes in some cases even 25. And the rest of the systems and processes are run through AI and automation. So with that said, let's also talk about the core skills that the rest of the people, the actual humans, are going to focus on, right? So when we look at that, with AI handling, let's say routine analytical tasks, um, human capabilities, let's say, like empathy or complex problem
Of
solving
course.
or adaptability, they kind of become the primary drivers of value. Um,
Right.
how is the HR function shifting its L&D programs, learning and development programs, to cultivate these human-centric skills?
Right. And so once again, I'm actually going to double down on what I've said. So as an HR Chief Human Resources Officer, we must be strategic and innovative. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you're a Chief Human Resources Officer or your people function has not already been operating strategically, the gap and the change management of this new, if what we're calling this new way of working,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to be a big gap, because if we are and if organizations are utilizing HR as enterprise infrastructure, once
Mm-hmm.
again the gap is not that large, right? So again, I'm going to double down on that. And
Sure.
utilization of these tools allows for more opportunities to be strategic. It allows for more opportunities to, again, meet your population where they are. It allows for more creativity, to be very honest, and giving more of a space for brainstorming and, again, innovation. So I do
Mm-hmm.
think that it's how it's being utilized, how it's being introduced into an organization.
Mm-hmm.
It must be strategic, and
Sounds
the
good.
role clarity is going to always be important. It's important with humans, but it's also important with our processes. So,
Sounds good. Sounds good. Now, I
mm,
know, because I know there's a lot of organizations that are already putting um, courses in place for their
mhm.
staff. They're putting, core skill development, training modules and all of that. So from a skilling perspective, I think this has been a common theme too, upskilling and reskilling in the
Of
first few
course.
sessions that we've had this morning too, which I think comes with the technological upskilling somebody needs to do, or, kind of keeping up with the trend and making sure they're up to whatever needs to be happening in the near future. On the human side of it, on the people side of it, I think something else that we kind of also have to look at would be the trust, um, the transparency, and the psychological safety
Mhm.
that HR leaders should be also focused on to ensure that the people that they have working in the organization are comfortable with that whole change management process, are comfortable with that new way of doing things, or new way of work itself, and being adaptable, right? So how would you look at that, like, with AI integration? And I know Krishna also touched on it earlier in terms of how do you ensure that there is enough trust, there is enough transparency in how things are being done, and folks feel safe enough from a psychological perspective to be able to adapt faster and then keep the momentum going?
Sure. It's so we're looking at once again our integration and implementation strategy. So we start there. So there has to be a strategy. It cannot be done by circumstance or
Mm-hmm.
uh uh so there has to be a strategy. And that strategy, and I'm going to speak first about the strategy and who's involved, right?
Yeah.
So we're making sure that we are bringing in the right folks. We're bringing in our IT team, right? Because we're looking at data integrations and making sure that our data is safe for our teams. We're bringing in our communications team, right? Because we're
Mm-hmm.
bringing them in on the process. And while they're in on the process, and that we can start building that strategy. We're bringing in, we're rolling it out to, focus groups, right? So we're
Mm-hmm.
bringing in, allowing people to get used to it. And then
Sure.
on the learning and development side, our learning and development, now what types of development are we offering? Or we should be offering, how are we navigating through ambiguity? Like
Mm-hmm.
to giving the tools, how do we navigate through ambiguity?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Critical thinking,
Yeah.
training on critical thinking and discernment, right? Adaptability. How do we need, as leaders, from a leadership perspective, we need to be adaptable. And
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
these are the type of training. So we bring in the strategy for implementation and integration, and then
Sure.
we're also giving the staff the tools to also pivot and to develop and sharpen other competencies to be able to thrive.
Sure, sure. And I think I was thinking a little about that too. Like when you say AI integration, I think for certain folks there is this anxiety
Yes.
around job security or even
Yes.
surveillance, especially if somebody who is remote, that's or a hybrid person, hybrid employee, and you're working from home a couple days, or maybe you're 100% remote. So I think that surveillance piece of what AI is doing on the back end, and also the job security piece, I think definitely trigger points for certain folks, right? I
Of
think.
course. And that's natural. And
Yeah.
so again, as HR leaders, this is when I'm talking about that
Right.
strategic plan,
Yep.
you are accounting for this. You
Yeah.
know that people are going to be anxious. So it's our
Mm-hmm.
job to try to give them the tools and the reassurance and the communication, which is the transparency, to help reduce said anxiety. In terms of surveillance, from
Yeah.
an HR perspective, and many may not like this, but this is the truth. Um, Let me let you know that
Yeah.
because the birth of AI does not, that wasn't when companies that needed to look on the background didn't look on the background. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I would
Yep.
always tell folks, like, get a company phone that's separate from your separate from your personal phone. Why?
Uh-huh.
Because if we need to scrape, it's now your personal phone. So I'm just saying, and also making that connection that
Right.
this is not, that component is really not new. The
Sure.
component of it that's new is the job security for sure. And again,
Mm-hmm.
that talks to organizational development,
Yeah.
that speaks to, and again, your strategic plan. I'm always going to go that you must have a strategic plan. You must.
Awesome, awesome, wonderful. And I think let's look forward in that sense, right? So when we are designing the workplace for the future of the future, rather, um, what does the future of company culture from a culture perspective look like when the C-suite is managing, let's say, a truly hybrid workforce um, made up of human employees and AI agents? What does that culture look like as we look forward?
So the culture would be that of here we have these amazing tools and resources for employees to that we encourage, highly encourage you to um, engage with and tap
Mm-hmm.
into.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we are providing opportunities for more the competencies are at it. So what people used to call, and I didn't like this, but what they would call soft skills,
Right. Mm-hmm.
which are
Yep.
were never soft.
Yep.
Now we're really, really honing in on developing leaders,
Mm-hmm.
but we're developing leaders and opinion leaders, and KOL, key opinion leaders now. And so we're giving opportunity for, again, that more innovative thought
Mm-hmm.
and innovative creating this more space because the monotonous portions of our jobs, there's no role that doesn't have an administrative portion, and some roles have more of it, but
Yep.
some of that monotony has been taken away, a lot, allowing time for folks to really be thinking of, opportunities for new clients, opportunities for new products and therapies for to help people and so forth, depending on your
Sure.
business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, let's say, if you could offer like one piece of advice to HR and business leaders here today about leading their people through the next 12 months of this AI transition, right?
Mhm.
What would that be?
I would say that take deep cleansing breaths, regulate your your nervous system, and understand, let's start working on a strategy. So we allow the tools and the resources to work for us. We don't
Mhm.
work for them.
Right. Amen to that. I always say that like every time, everywhere. I'm like looking at things. And I think we use so much of AI in our personal lives as well, not just professional, but also personal. And
Sure.
I keep joking with my husband all the time. It's like, have you all watched Planet of the Apes? You know what happens in Planet of the Apes. We don't want to get ourselves into that situation where instead of apes, it's going to be the AI agents everywhere. And we don't want to get ourselves to the point of them running the show, them running our lives. I
Right.
think that's a very scary picture for me. I hope we don't get to that point. Sounds very sci-fi, futuristic, and wow, it'll be wonderful for certain folks. But I just hope that, the human element stays on, lives on, and we are using all these tools, systems, AI agents to make things better for us
Right.
and not be overtaken by and get into that rut of doing what the machines want you to do. I think we are already halfway through with our phones, but I hope we don't get there too much either.
Yeah, no, again, and I am pragmatic. And so we know that there will be agents out there that
Yep.
will not use it for good. They will
Yep.
use it for evil, like any and everything.
Mm-hmm.
You can use the pen for evil and good, right? So if that's a choice.
Yep.
But of course, coming from from the perspective of how do we create this psychological safety? How do we create a space for innovation? How do
Mm-hmm.
we create a space to actually help humankind, right? And that's respective of whatever you do in business. How are we creating this space to create evolution and innovation positively?
Awesome. Wonderful. I know, like, I guess the theme, there's one theme that if we've heard that today, I think it's that successful AI integration isn't just a technology strategy, but it's also a culture strategy. It's kind of rooted in empathy. It's rooted in trust from the people of all those who are involved in that process. And I guess C-suite leaders, and not just HR leaders, right? I mean, I think it's not just the sole responsibility of the person who handles people functions or HR functions, but everybody in that at that level, all of them have to kind of dig deep on how their organizations will function in the AI forward maybe society or even an AI forward organizational culture. Did you have anything to add to everything that we spoke about? Did you want to add anything more from your own insights,
Yeah.
experiences?
Yeah, so when absolutely. So when I say, we have to have a strategic plan, of course, that the implication there
Yep.
is that before we get to that plan, the executive team, we have a general philosophy, a goal in terms of how we want to utilize this tool,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so
Mm-hmm.
we're there. And then, the people function will then um use it and how all different functions. So it's just not just the people function.
Yep.
How will these tools be used to enhance, and how are we going to use it to enhance and impact utilization within our organizations, right? So it is a shared message, and it's shared with throughout. It's just not the people team. It's not the
Right.
people function. It is a shared mission, which
Right.
is everything, to be honest, but that's a different topic.
Topic altogether.
Oh, and
Uh,
I would like to also add that remember the tools that we're utilizing. So for example, the tool that I implemented,
mhm.
I really pushed the vendor. I said, I want this image to look like everyone, be
Right.
very diverse. I want to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that there is this so it's ethical and responsible use of the
Mm-hmm.
tool.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Makes sense. Totally makes sense. I know we're kind of a few minutes away. I'm gonna see if we have any questions from the audience. If there are any insights, comments, questions anybody has, would love to get those up here now. Um, People talking about apes. Yep, I knew I could. Like, I was like, uh-huh, something on my mind all the time. So many times. Chloe, totally agree. Totally agree. But all right. Anybody else have any questions for Tiffany? So we continue. Okay, so there is a question. Looks like if AI is positioned as a resource, how are you seeing organizations define clear boundaries for decision ownership so leaders don't unintentionally defer accountability to the system? Interesting question.
Sure. So I just want to make sure I understand the question. So what processes and procedures do we have around where leaders are not defaulting to AI? I want to make sure I can understand the question.
Chloe,
Yes, that's how I was thinking of it.
Yeah. So of course, I mean, if we're looking at, thank you, Chloe. If we're looking at the policies and procedures like any policy or procedure, you want to make sure that, for example, we are utilizing this tool to help specifically with X, Y, or Z, right? So you're putting those parameters, and if we're seeing that they're going outside of those said parameters, I think there's an opportunity to take a look to see, going outside of the parameters, what are the implications? So I mean, I think that there are because what we don't want to do is have opportunities where to miss out on potential opportunities, or if we're looking at something that is vendor focused where we have an IP issue, but if it's an internal created a code, somebody created such codes internally. Like, how are we utilizing this tool? And if someone has gone outside the realm that, a leader, a employee, an individual, what do we do? What are what are what's the follow up? What's to happen with that? So I feel like I'm rambling on about that, but Chloe, it's based upon how are we putting in the policies, and it depends on the situation, because it's maybe something that we hadn't thought of, or it's like, yeah, that's absolutely outside of not using it for good.
Awesome, awesome. Great, great. I hope that answers the question, Chloe. Anybody else have any questions? Anything else before we get ready to wrap up this conversation? All right. Okay. I think we're almost there then. I mean, this was absolutely wonderful. I think I'm walking away learning more and also have some food for thought for myself. But thank you so much, Tiffany. We appreciate your time today, insights, wonderful chat. I know you have a hectic schedule, but I hope you can stick around and stay on for a few more sessions or even interact with us, during the expo 12 to 2. But we appreciate once again your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.